Are we ready?
We are.
We are ready.
All right, we are.
Never been more people in this studio ever. John Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland. Come over the bridge, go through one set of lights, pull a Yui, park in front of the music store with the red neon light. Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Be on the show with me. Have your own podcast in our beautiful studio. Today is a momentous occasion. We are here in honor of Bob Gatzen, who has recently left us, sadly. And we have some, if not all, of the luminaries of the world-famous creative music in Wethersfield, Connecticut, back in the day. I believe, as you're looking from your left, John McIlhoney, that's him. Geoff Brown in the middle, and Mr. Frank Giguere. They have all three been here separately, but they are here together, and we are here to discuss Bob, the store, and an event that is impending.
Indeed.
A future event. Mm-hmm. Somebody tell me about the event.
So next Thursday, today, what is today? Today is
May 7th.
So next Thursday, May 16th.
Yep.
We're doing a memorial tribute to Bob Gatzen. It'll be at the Keeney Memorial Cultural Center in Old Wethersfield, right on Main Street.
Sure.
From 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
Beautiful. Yep. Be there, be square.
Yeah.
What's the, tell us about.
We're asking for a $10 suggested donation to help support the activity.
Sure.
But
Cash, no Venmo.
Yeah, cash.
Yeah.
Yes. In an envelope.
I don't want to give you my Venmo.
Yeah.
It's not going to be Apple Pay. Sorry.
Yeah, bring exact change, too. I'm not going to stand there.
$10 bill. Is that a sawbuck?
I think a sawbuck's a 5.
5. 2 sawbucks.
Yeah. That's funny. So what's gonna happen?
So yeah, it's both the celebration of Bob's life and his career and the community. You know, the fraternity that grew out of 30 years of creative music. It reaches far and wide, and it was such a special place to so many people for so long that it's as much a reunion and a celebration of that community as it is Bob's work.
Sure.
So we're gonna have. We have some video testimonials we're going to be showing from people that couldn't make it. We're going to have some surprise music and some raffles, some giveaways. We got some nice support from Evans Drumheads.
Oh, cool.
Noble and Cooley Drum Company is going to be there representing as well. So it's going to be, we're trying to recreate some of the atmosphere of the old Christmas parties that were famous at the store, and also some of the vibe of the drum clinics.
Cool.
It's going to be a fun time.
Cool.
Good gathering.
Will there be a glider? Remember the days of the glider? There was you guys had a glider.
You sure about
At
that?
Creative, you remember? You
No.
don't remember? You don't remember?
No idea what you're talking
You know what
about.
a glider? It's like a bench. You sit in it, but it was kind of a little suspended. It was like you put on the front yard. It was you don't remember the glider?
Was it in the front hall?
No, it was. It was.
That was towards the end. Like in the last few years, they did bring in some outdoor patio furniture because we had a TV set up there for the videos.
Yeah,
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, you sit. It's like a front porch bench, but it's on kind of a glider. You're like, oh,
where was it?
Yeah, it was by the back room.
We have so many more important things to talk about.
Be the sliding glass doors. There's a
yeah,
TV set up there where the drum videos and stuff are playing.
I spent all my time in the basement.
We may have to go through the local dump and see if we can retrieve that. Sure. I'm glad you remember that important part of creative music history.
That's what I remember. Out of all things, I'm like the glider, and everyone's like, what? It's funny. So that's cool. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's anyone on Facebook. There's a Facebook event for it, so you can follow what's happening there. It's probably the best place.
Jeff reluctantly joined Facebook after over a decade for this.
For this, yeah.
Then as soon as this event's over,
it might
delete, it'll disappear.
Are you going to do that? You're out?
I don't know. I've already got like 150 friends or something like that. People coming out of the woodwork. I'm like, okay,
yeah.
And like after a couple of weeks, or something, but.
Yeah, and then back into the ozone, the
we'll
mists. Funny, awesome.
But yeah, you can search on Facebook for the Bob Gatzen event. It'll come up.
Okay, yeah. We'll try to put links and things, because we got a little bit of time. Today is Tuesday.
Sorry to interrupt, but you said you had like 250,000 followers that were going to be able to check out.
Oh yeah,
this podcast today, and we should be prepared for Woodstock in Wethersfield.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Some helicopter footage.
Yes. I have tens of followers. But so I mean, I'm assuming that most people who are going to see the show know what we're talking about. But Creative Music was a drum store in Wethersfield, where even I grew up in Wallingford, and it was like an event to go up there to actually see things in real life that I only saw in Modern Drummer magazine, and it was all there.
Yeah.
There was no other place like
From 1972 to 2002.
All right. So who wants to start at the beginning? Who was there first
Not I.
out of you three?
I think Frank and I probably were there together because
Yeah.
we were both at UConn, and we'd make the sojourn. You know, it was like you said. You know, from Wallingford, it was it was like a trip to Mecca, and for coming from stores, we'd all be geeking out at at Vondermaiden,
Right.
practicing our paradiddles,
Oh, really?
and then we'd
So it was already happening. It was already a thing.
Yeah, you were there in 75?
75. I think the first time I went to Creative was, I was trying to think about this today. I think it was, I know I was studying with Gene Bosey in 1977. So it must have been like 1976 or, early 77 that I first went to Creative.
I'm sure we went there together in the
We did.
Funkmobile.
Maybe in the Funkmobile.
Frank had this old Rambler, with no floor,
Oh, nice.
like
Yeah.
Fred
Literally
Flintstone.
no floor in the back.
Funkmobile.
Yeah.
Right. That Carl Palmer was never in.
No,
We were talking
Carl
about
couldn't
before.
even get in the back seat.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, can I get a ride with you guys? Nope.
Nope.
Yeah. And you couldn't open up the passenger
I'm sure
door.
we drove there together and
Yeah.
just to,
Oh, absolutely.
to check it out.
Yeah. A bunch of times.
And so how did you hear? You just would manage to hear about it. Because no offense, but this is a different time.
Yellow Pages.
Oh, back
Right?
then it was like, people just started hearing about like,
Yeah.
oh, there's this place.
You
in
gotta go to
Wethersfield,
this
You got to
spot.
go there.
Yeah. And it was Bob.
It was.
Like he...
And it began as a teaching studio. The original concept, I think he was just out of University of Hartford.
Okay.
And it was really, it was on the Silas Deane Highway. It was in a building adjacent to what most people think of as Creative Music. It was in the building next door where the Acme Auto was for a long time. That was the original spot. And it was designed as a teaching studio. That was the primary goal, was an education center. And I think the retail kind of emerged naturally out of that. And then when they moved into the bigger building that most people are familiar with, the record store was in there, as we've discussed. Ed Crack had the record store in there. Ray D. Champlain had Creative Strings, the guitar store.
Right.
And then you had the drum shop.
Yep.
And so the retail thing just kind of grew from there. But originally, so education was originally the intention. There was a studio downstairs they built. It was primarily that. And that was always kind of a running theme. Clinics and education were always a huge part of the store, even as the retail became the driving force.
And who originally taught there? Do we remember? Who were the first?
Well, Ken Fisher was teaching piano. Tom Majeski was teaching guitar.
Oh, wow.
Tyler Van Ostrand was teaching bass.
Okay.
And Bob was teaching himself, too. I think he was
Oh, yeah.
teaching
We
drums
both took
and vibraphone.
Yeah, vibe lessons. Yeah, that was.
So he just put it together for people he knew, just to kind of get it started.
Yeah, he had a few of the.
To Natalie or something, didn't he teach there?
He might have taught there a bit, and he had a few horn players. Who was was it Al Forte, who was a trumpet player?
Before my time there.
Yeah.
But, but in the early days, there was some,
That
Bob
guy played loud, didn't he, Al Forte?
Did he?
But
Except when he was playing piano.
I don't know. What
But
that means.
in the early days, Bob Moses taught there.
wow.
Yes.
Kenwood Denard came down from Boston. He taught there.
Oh, that's heavy.
Ed Soph taught there because at the time, Ed Soph, who's an amazing big band drummer and great educator, he was teaching at the University of Bridgeport at the time,
Right.
which is where Joel Rosenblatt was going to school and where Dave Weckel went to school, University of Bridgeport, because of Ed Soph. But Ed would come up a couple of times a week, and he was teaching at the store through. That was like 80s.
Hey, that's cool.
Yeah.
So there was, there was a lot. There was, Ed Soph, Bob Moses, Kenwood Denard on staff.
That's heavy.
I don't know who that is.
Who?
Bob Carabello.
Bob Carabello, Davis.
I don't recall. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there it was, a center.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know?
With big names
That's
associated
cool.
with it from the beginning.
And then how did you guys find it and then ended up working there, teaching there?
I was there as a customer. I started going in the late 70s,
Yeah.
And I think, and I often have shared this story with our mutual friend, Doug LaChapelle. When he was playing with the band Hothead Slater,
Yep.
I was a little kid. They were doing a concert at my church. And me and my friend...
Imagine that,
Yeah.
Doug LaChapelle in a church. That's hard to imagine.
Hothead Slater in a church. For some reason, they hired this rock band to come and do like a community thing or for the kids or something.
Imagine.
So me and my friends got there early and watched the roadies come in, watched the band set up, and was talking to Doug, and he told me, I think he was showing me that he turned me on to the Regal stick, the JoJo sticks, and said, go to Creative Music, go see Bob Gatson, tell him I sent you, he'll give you a discount.
Hey. That's cool.
And that might have been.
Did you ever get that
I
discount?
don't think
No.
I ever did. No.
Yeah, Doug's
No, yeah.
lying as usual because I know he's been watching. Lies.
So I started
Another
going
lie.
there.
Doug is part of me, Jeff, and Doug are putting the thing on.
The Bob
so
Gatson
we
event.
need to
So-
put a shout out to Doug.
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh, for
Yeah.
sure.
For
Yeah,
sure. We
definitely.
love you, Doug.
Yeah, of course.
And so I started going there as a customer in the late 70s when it was Bob Gatson and Jim Foley was kind of a legend back then, was working there.
Huh.
So I started going there probably 78 or 79 as a customer.
Yeah. And then when did you guys fall in? Who wants to go first?
So when did you start working there, and how did that happen?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, thanks. We'll see you later.
Okay.
I honestly don't.
Really?
I honestly do have. I have no. I'm sure they just asked me if I wanted to work there because maybe Ag was taken off. He was leaving.
Steve
and,
Agritelli?
Yeah, and they just needed. It was probably Mark McKenna, and then I came in, and then
Yeah, you and Mark Carter worked there together.
you were next. I think.
Yeah. So I started working there. And same thing, Bob called me out of the blue. I was a customer there and just asked if I was interested in working there. I think
Oh, really?
Because John was playing with Physical Graffiti at the time.
Yeah, I had to
and your
loosen up,
gig
yeah.
schedule was getting busier.
Right.
And so we overlapped for a while. We worked there for some time.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
As you were kind of moving into more of a full-time playing thing.
Yeah, I would always
Yeah.
hear about somebody named Frank who was in the basement, but I never saw you.
We never let him come upstairs.
Right.
Frank's down in the basement.
Right. Yeah.
And when did you start teaching there?
I started in 1983.
Oh, wow.
And I had, like I said, I had started taking lessons with Gene way back, like 1977. And, it was pretty typical. I would take a half a summer of lessons, and then it was like, I don't have any money and I'm too busy. And, so I went through a couple of summers like that. He ended up teaching at UConn for a very short time.
Yeah,
so
well, he
was
picked up from Minutello. And
right.
I think he was there for probably your graduation and mine, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then at that same time, I started taking lessons with Bob Moses. Very interesting lessons. And then when Kenwood Denard started, I jumped on that right away. Yeah, the way that I was at the store and Gene and Bob, he come out to the van. We're sitting in behind the store, and he turns to me and goes, one of the guys who had been one of the original teachers, Jim Roselle, had left. And so, he turns to me and he goes, "We'd like you to teach here." I was just floored.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you never taught before? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, I had been teaching at a bunch of places. At a little place in Vernon called Sebastian's Music. At Lenny Parasino's place, Casper Percussion in Manchester. University of Hartford. I worked for their community division for.
But
a
this
few
was
years.
the thing.
It was like that was where that I had made it.
That's awesome.
And so I got the teaching a job at Creative, and I got into Street Temperature within like 2 months.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, okay.
Here's my new life.
Yeah.
Cool.
And an interesting connection there. I'm not sure we've ever had this conversation, but I felt like I indirectly studied with Frank for years because he was teaching all my friends. So all my
Right,
friends were studying with Frank, and so I was learning all the stuff they were. They come over here. Oh, Frank showed me this. Frank showed me that. You were
Tim.
teaching Tim Fesco.
And you still never met him. And you still had never even met him.
No, actually,
So I think you owe him about $40,000 right
yeah,
about
probably.
now.
And the first time I saw Frank,
Cash.
yeah, no Venmo.
Yeah, only
After the
Sawbucks.
$10 that you bring to the Bob Gatson Memorial.
But the
give
first time I saw
$40,000.
Frank play was at a Percussive Art Society event at University of Hartford, and you were doing like a fusion, a clinic on fusion drumming, and you may have had a Rogers drum set.
Yeah.
Okay. See?
Yeah, that was Jim Rozell's drum
Okay,
set.
there you go. How's that?
Imagine
So-
that.
Oh, it was almost ridiculous. It was like a 24-inch bass drum, and the smallest tom was 13 inches, and I'm out there playing jazz.
Was it
right.
like a steel blue finish? That's what I have in my
Yeah,
picture in my head, but-
yeah.
But I remember seeing Frank do this clinic on fusion drumming, so I knew who he was. I was familiar with him, and I'd see him at the store, and I had some other friends too. All my friends studied with Frank, and so I learned a lot from Frank without taking a lesson with him.
That's
I learned
cool.
a lot of what he was teaching. So I'm forever grateful for that. I mean, I seriously learned some and at that those high school years, those really formative times in your life.
Yeah.
Frank's influence was huge on me, and I'd go see them. Street Temperature too, when they're playing at the 880 on Friday nights, and that was an event. Like those shows, that was an event. I mean, the place was packed, the place was on fire. Everyone was just really excited, and the band just came out. Like those days, I mean,
Yeah.
that was some high octane playing. It was
Friday
awesome.
nights, life sentence.
Yeah. So no, thank you. I mean, seriously, and Frank was a huge influence indirectly in a number of ways
Hey.
in my formative years. So,
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I appreciate that.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
What about him?
I never saw him play.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know John until he started working there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
And how did you don't remember. You already said you don't remember.
I honestly, I think they just were looking for another guy to pick up the slack,
Yeah.
And,
And you're like,
I was
okay.
I was sensible,
Yep.
and I cleaned up well, and Joanne, gave the thumbs up, and so that was that.
And they knew you
Yeah.
from around.
Yeah,
They're like, he seems like almost an adult.
yeah, I was back then almost.
Yeah, cool.
Because I remember you were there when they transitioned from the smaller store to the larger store, when the guitar shop moved out and the drum shop took over half the upstairs.
Yep.
I remember when it was kind of in disarray. You were working there at that time, and it was all kind of being remodeled, and like the new store was being.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when I first started showing up, probably in the early 80s, there was something in the middle between the record store and...
Well, the record store wasn't over on the other side. That was a dental lab.
Oh.
There was a dental lab, and then where the drum store ended up being, when they had the guitar shop, that was the record store in like the late 70s, early
gotcha.
80s.
Yep.
Ed, the dental place, thankfully moved out,
Right.
and then Ed took over that big space, and that's when Bob moved just expanded
Gotcha.
the store. And Ray had his store in the basement. It was the last
Right, yeah.
teaching room that I had.
That's what he was saying. It was downstairs.
Yeah, and that was probably for about 1 or 2 years,
Huh.
and then he moved upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the connection? Because to me, I didn't know anything except it was a thing. Like you would go to the record store too, like it was a thing.
Sure.
Oh, totally.
You know,
Yeah.
and
Without a doubt.
talk about records and then go try to find them.
Yeah.
It was like
And they
yeah,
had
that was an amazing.
yeah.
Angelo and then George.
George.
I mean,
George
they're
Stevens,
just legendary personalities.
Yeah.
Knew everything that was in the store.
Yep.
If you wanted to know anything about straight ahead jazz, older stuff, Ed was like, oh yeah, right over here.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Lucky.
And a lot because he would buy people's record collections, so he had just an enormous amount of vinyl, 3 or 4 copies of just about any album you can imagine.
Yeah, there were a couple of interesting things that were happening back then. Number one, there were no cell phones.
Right.
So none of us can remember the layout of the store or anything like that, So that's kind of foggy, And number two, you couldn't download music, so you had to go over there and
Right.
actually go
Yep.
through the experience. So it was an analog world back then,
Totally.
and I
Yep.
mean, that was
Totally.
Yeah.
what was going on.
Well, at least we had the best of it at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when it was that thing.
When I think, the store expanded, physically and got bigger and took on more lines and had more gear right at like the 80s when retail was just exploding, when everyone was buying gear. Everyone was buying lots of gear.
Yeah.
Drummers were buying double bass kits and rack system and tons of cymbals, and guitar players were buying pedal effects and lots of amps. And so everyone was buying a lot of everything. So that just the convergence of that with the expansion of the store, the timing was just perfect.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And then, so how does Mark Carter fit into all of this?
Oh, that's the $20,000 question.
Well,
Yeah, Mark was a legend. I mean, he was there
Yeah.
10 years before I was.
Okay.
He must have started working there.
Right after Steve left.
Yeah, so
that was like
early 80s.
early 80s. Yeah.
so is
Jim
he the
Foley
longest, has the longest tenure?
Yeah, for sure.
Mark?
Yeah.
Mark.
Yeah.
I bet he was there with Ag. Maybe not though. And McKenna, how that all fit together, who knows? But Mark was way before any of us.
Yeah, he was there with Steve. It was Jim Foley, I think, who left first.
Yeah.
And then Mark started.
Yeah, he must have been like late 70s, early 80s.
And then when Steve left, I think that's when they got John McKenna.
Yeah, another unbelievable blast from the past. Bob was incredibly health conscious, and he would run miles and miles to the store.
Yeah, from his
to
house.
work every
Ran to
day.
the store every day. Yeah,
That's exciting.
But when Foley was there, it was the Mount Rushmore of cigarette ashes.
Oh,
And that dude could suck an entire cigarette down in one
talk,
fell swoop.
and sit at the pad playing.
yeah, right.
He was an amazing character. The first really colorful guy there, and he was, just so irreverent and I mean, I wish I could recall some of his wisecracking, It'd be like, hey man, Matt Franklin, I think he had some pretty good ones, or somebody, it's like, should I put some purple wrap on this drum? And he'd be like, I don't know. If you want to.
Yeah, right. That's it.
Yeah, my
it
first
was
introduction
great.
to the store was through Jim. My first time calling the store, Jim Foley was on the phone. The first time I went in there, it was Jim Foley.
I don't know if
I'd
I
love to
remember.
know where Jim is now. Where are you, Jim Foley?
Oh,
where
really?
are you?
Wow. I don't know if I remember him.
He looked like Walter Becker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I do remember
Long
him.
hair, beard.
Right?
Yeah.
I do
Parted
remember
on the
him.
side.
I do remember him. Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw anyone that looked like that back then.
I never did either.
You come up and go, wow. Guy's like, he's like a rock and roll, cranky dude, right? That's what I remember.
I think he was a jazzer though, or
Oh yeah.
And then eventually he just left.
just I
I
have
don't
no
remember
idea.
the circumstances. I think it was just like, hey, I've done my.
And of course, that was back in the days when you could smoke anywhere, so it
Oh
wasn't like
yeah.
you
Yeah.
just.
He was a chain smoker.
It was just your tough luck. If you don't want to breathe cigarette smoke, don't go anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't go anywher.
Life was different back then.
Right, and the whole counter
lot of
was a
ways.
drum pad, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that. That would be my thing with Mark when I was on the road, and I would come in with a problem like my bass drum's creeping, and Mark would be like, bring it in, and he would just go into the side where all the parts were, and go, I'm going to put some spurs on here. I go, okay, you need better spurs, okay, and he would put the spurs on. I go, what? Oh yeah. He goes, just go next door and get me a pack of cigarettes. That was it. That would be the thing.
And when they banned cigarette
So
smoking
funny.
inside, then that changed the Dr Pepper and Reese's was the famous
right.
form of
Oh,
famous
I see.
Dr Pepper,
Yeah.
the Reese's.
I don't know.
Ah,
That's
yeah.
right.
Oh
or
boy.
Snickers or whatever the
Right.
heck.
Yeah,
So funny.
yeah, but Mark was there. I was there for almost a little over 10 years, and Mark was there, I think, 10 years before me. So he was.
Wow.
Yeah,
He-
he was.
Yeah,
He
he
was
came
20
in
plus years.
shortly after I started because Steve and
Yeah.
Jim were still there when I started teaching. So it must have been like 84 or 85 that he came in.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Steve, I don't understand. Steve Agritelli,
Yeah, Steve Agritelli and Jim Foley worked together.
they were still there in '84.
80.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, they were there when I started.
Yeah, okay. Maybe.
I know Steve was.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I started teaching. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, he might have started. It was right around that time. So we were probably there between the two of us about the same time.
That's cool.
And then Bruce Menard came in.
That's what I was going to say. I remember
and
Bruce.
it was me and Bruce and Mark
Yep.
for a long time. I worked a lot of evenings with Bruce,
Yep.
the two of us.
Yep. I remember that.
Yeah, for a long, long time. So
Cool.
Love to see Bruce next Thursday
Oh yeah,
at
right.
the Bob Gatson.
Yeah, and I'm going to do a
Memorial
lot of headhunting
celebration.
that day. There's going to be a lot of folks
there
that,
you go.
that I
Yeah.
forgot about.
Bruce,
I'm gonna get
if
for
you're
the show.
watching,
yeah.
See you
please
then.
come down.
Yeah, definitely. Talk about Bob. For people who don't know, because I guess I don't know. Like I talk to Matt Starr about this all the time. Like we don't know the half of it. What Bob was actually responsible for.
Well, I mean, there's
How
two
do you-
sides to that. You know,
Okay.
there's the product. When you say response, there's the product side. We can
Right.
get into all the products he developed. But even before that, you know, he played in this band called the Wanderers back in the 60s.
Okay.
They were hugely popular in the area, and you know, and he was playing in this band. Later on, he used to host an open mic at Mad Murphy's downtown,
Oh.
and I mean, like Pat Metheny would play there, and
Yeah,
Jeff
yeah.
Berlin would play there. All these guys, they'd come from New York to Boston. They'd stop there, and he knew all these people. They'd play at Mad Murphy's. And,
Wow.
and one week, Pat said to him, "Hey, I got this new guy on bass. I'm going to bring in at the open mic," and it was Jocko. Like, I mean, those are the kind of circles that Bob was in. He was
Yeah,
studying.
yeah.
With,
Yeah.
he studied with Gary Burton.
Yeah.
And he studied with Bob Moses. So he like all the stuff that it's so fun. Like so many things that I was doing later. He had done all that. He had done the open mics. He had done the gigging scene.
Yeah.
He kind of got all that out of his system early on.
Yeah, we were talking about it. He was like a hot rodder.
Yeah.
Like some
Big gearhead.
West Hartford. He grew up in West Hartford. Went to Hall.
Yeah, right.
His dad owned a garage, was a mechanic, and he was a super gearhead. You're racing cars, crashing cars. There's
Yeah.
stories about that. He was a madman.
Heavy.
So he was really immersed in the scene. And then when he got into, and I think probably that having that background is growing up around a shop, his dad being a mechanic, working on cars. I think that's where a lot of the tinkering and the inventiveness came from.
Yeah.
He was used to tools. He was used to modifying things. So that just naturally translated into his work with drums.
Just to improve.
He was a gearhead on drums.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I mean, that's rare. I guess it's rare, right? I mean, we're lucky that we all were the recipient.
Yeah. What
of
was
that
his saying? Be a drum head or something?
Be a
like
drum
that?
head. Yeah.
Be a drum head.
Drumhead.
Yeah.
What does that mean
What would you like it to
to
be?
you? Yeah, right. Yeah.
Always be thinking. Always be thinking
Yeah.
and thinking in terms of drums and drumming. And
Yeah.
For me, the first thing that he did that was so innovative was I remember I bought a new set of deep Gretsch drums, and he outfitted all of them with dead ringers. And that was the thing at that time.
Sure.
People used to come and see me play, and they'd be looking for the microphones because they were like, "Your drums sound like studio drums. They sound like they're mic'd." And it was just what he had done.
Yeah.
That was like the first time that I realized, oh, he's not just running the store and playing vibes.
Yeah, right. He's creating sound.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And so the product thing, the first thing I think primarily was to work with Noble and Cooley. It's a Noble and Cooley drum company out of Granville, Mass.
Okay.
And they were originally working on, I think, repairing a customer's Radio King and trying to restore a Radio King. And Jay Jones, the owner of Noble and Cooley, that had been around since the Civil War making drums, and they had all the old factory, all the old wood bending machines, all the old tooling. They were primarily at that time making toy drums. It was still a very active and profitable business making toy drums, but Jay had the know-how, and they started working on restoring a Radio King, and then thought, well, maybe we can improve upon this and make our own version of the Radio King. And that's what birthed the Noble and Cooley solid shell snare drum, which must have been like around
83.
80 okay.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know because I got my first one
That's
in
right, we talked about that.
1983,
Right.
Okay.
and it was like number 80 something on the shell. And and then later, he allowed me to take a prototype.
Right,
And,
that's the story.
Yeah.
Boy, the 80s were a blur, huh?
Yeah, right.
83.
And so that was really the start of his product development. And Noble and Cooley, built into going from snare drums to full drum sets.
And then Simmons,
and
then Evans.
Yeah, I mean, drumsticks. He was. So I think because Noble and Cooley put him on the map. Are you kidding me? Wow.
Who was it?
That was my alarm that tonight is garbage night. I got to take the bins out.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Okay.
Okay, so we'll see it.
Yeah.
Even when it's silent,
So?
that
Take the
goes,
bins out.
yeah. So that apparently is a priority. Overall the muting features.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's fine.
So I think because the Noble and Cooley gave him a presence in the industry, and also he had a good relationship with Zildjian. You know, at the time, the Zildjian just outside of Boston, the main factory was up there, and you could go up there and he had a good relationship with them because he would go up there and pick out all these ridiculously killer cymbals. The whole vault was up there. They'd come back with 150 cymbals.
Wow.
And Bob would hand pick just the best cymbals going.
So what did he do for Noble and Cooley? Help them
He
what?
designed the drums.
Yeah, he was designing.
okay.
They were his patents.
Yeah.
Wow.
Designed the drums, the snare drums, the drum sets.
Wow.
Then they started making their own drumsticks. And eventually Regal Tip was making the Bob Gatzen model stick.
Oh, I love those BG maples.
Yeah, we all
I
played
played those for
Everyone
years.
We all played the BGs, the Bob Gatzen models.
What were they like? I never had
They
them.
were well. First they were maple, and then
They're both.
instead of hickory,
he
and they
made
were a
both.
little bit thicker. I always used the
Yeah.
maple ones, and they had sort of a squared kind of
barrel-shaped tip.
Yeah, it
And
wasn't.
if you
like
come to the Bob Gatzen Memorial on Thursday, we have a few pairs of those that we'll be giving away.
Oh,
I'll be rolling those.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they were made, back in the Civil War times. So
Right. So
I think they've
they're
warped
not
a
going to
little
roll
bit.
in a straight line.
No.
No, that's
They're not going
They
to
were
roll.
unique. They had a longer feel to them, a kind of gradual taper, that barrel-shaped tip.
Yeah.
They had 3 or 4 different weights. They were making them in hickory. They had the BG maples.
Yeah.
And we were all playing them. They were great sticks. They were really, really nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, I think he would say, do you want to keep your job here? Yeah. Well, then play my drumsticks.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Okay, Bob.
Okay, I will. I'll do that.
I want to talk about Bob as a person. Obviously he had a lot of incredibly brilliant ideas, and I don't think any of us have ever met anyone like him. But one of the really interesting dynamics that was going on there was, of course, he and his wife were working together. Joanne came into the business more and more as Bob was kind of fading away into the brilliance of his innovation, and he was leaving the retail world behind.
I got you.
And that was a really big deal.
So here she comes.
And so they needed to balance that all out together. And it was always very amusing and always very interesting to watch the two of them play off each other. And it was a great, in retrospect, it was a great symbiotic relationship because they kind of filled each other's void, and they spent so much time together. Like I said before, he was a health nut, and he would jog into the store every day.
Sure.
She would drive in. And he would run in, and then eat some carrots.
And breathe all that cigarette smoke
Yeah,
that was already.
that was post cigarettes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But black coffee and carrots, and Joanne was there, doing the grunt work in the back, and it was very interesting, and it added a lot of color to our lives, and that was very remarkable, to see a couple that was working together, and sometimes it was weird, sometimes it was funny. but they ended up really making their business work, and she gave him the freedom to be able to to go off on his amazing journey of inventiveness.
Hey, well, that's cool.
It was really a big deal.
And she had the dogs.
Yeah, they were competitive dogs.
Yeah, she showed were they English
Old
sheepdogs?
English sheepdogs, yep. Old
Yeah.
English sheepdogs, and then the Tibetan terriers. I think after that.
They
But
did that together too. That was another thing they did. They had a few things that they loved to do together, but we got
Disney.
to see that, because they were working together in the store. So we really.
Yeah, they were never far from each other's side. She would go to the trade shows. They
were real partners.
Yeah, they were always together.
Wow.
And they loved Disney.
They loved Disney.
Oh, really?
That was their spot.
That was where they went.
3 or 4 times a year, they were
Yeah.
down at Disney. They
Wow.
loved Disney.
Yeah,
Wow, that's wild.
yeah, and he ended up doing work with Disney too, right?
I think
At
so.
the end, where he was
think
doing
so.
videos
Yeah,
and stuff.
yeah.
With the,
Is that right?
Yeah.
So he eventually talks to them. You know what you need to do? You never think about this or that. Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, the dogs are a huge part of their lives. Yeah,
Huh.
showing those dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. So I remember there was a period where there was, the shop, and then there was the sliding glass door, and behind that he always had something going on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was like
Right.
It was kind of like a
Electronics.
studio showroom. but
wasn't it the electronic?
That's
room?
what
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what I
It
remember.
was probably originally set up as that, like to show
Yeah,
off like the
yeah.
cat controllers,
Right,
and some of the
that's
Simmons
what I
stuff and
remember.
things like that,
Yeah.
and just as kind of an isolated room. But it just became a showroom for
Yeah.
whatever was kind of new or in inventions he was working on.
Yeah.
People would he often once he started wearing that lab coat, the white full length lab coat that he got from Bob Beals, I think was the original owner of Evans Drumheads, gave him that. So people come in and be the doctor.
yeah.
He loved to put that on. He loved the.
Why
I
not?
think it put him in the right frame of mind. He put on his lab coat.
Why not?
to work on drumheads? And
I'm going to start doing that and have a lab coat here.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
So
so
he-
go do your your karaoke gigs.
Yeah, that'd be my thing. Yeah.
Pink lab coat.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
Bob really helped put Evans Drumheads on the map at the time. Bob Beals was the original owner. And they were still doing the hydraulic heads and the epoxy hoops. And I believe Peter Erskine was the contact. I think he was in Evans and Dorsey, and he recommended Bob Gatzen to Bob Beals as someone to help with some of the innovation and ideas. And Bob thrust them into the next century. Really, he really pushed the envelope, inventing the Generas, the EQ heads, all those, the muffled snare drum heads, the muffled bass drum heads, the muffling system, the EQ system inside the bass drums. He did a lot of innovation.
Drilling holes in snare drum heads. You're like, who would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I remember when
Yeah.
when that happened.
And that's still, so many of the products they're doing now and other companies are imitating like I look around in the market and there's not a lot of huge innovation since then. It's still stuff that he was doing in the early 90s. It's still, there hasn't been such a big leap since. And there's been minor steps forward in innovations, but he really made a huge leap forward in drumhead design.
I remember those. The Genera Drive.
Yeah,
That was a big deal.
That was all his stuff.
Yep.
That was all his innovations, the whole Genera series.
Wow.
And eventually they were bought out by D'Addario, and he started working close with Jim D'Addario and the team down there.
Oh, wow.
And they bought Evans Drumheads, and that was a huge part of his innovation. And because in the drum design, he started working with Zildjian when they came out. The Zildjian snare drum he designed. There was 2 different models of that cast Zildjian snare drum.
That's
that was a
right.
Noble and Cooling Zildjian collaborative, but that was Bob's design.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What didn't he do now?
Oh,
Now
yeah.
I start to think of it.
Another thing he did do with the drum slinger bags were another big innovation.
Oh yeah.
Drum Slinger was a company that made mostly camping and camera equipment, and he started designing drum bags, so the stick bags, the cymbal bags. It's really innovative. He put a lot of thought into those are products that people just hadn't done anything with. A stick bag was just a bag you threw sticks in.
I
and
still have mine.
and people just didn't really put much thought
So
into
he just
things.
never
And so,
stopped.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
and they were really,
yeah.
really innovative, really cool, really useful for drummers. Just a lot of the features he built into these products. So they were doing a full set of drum cases, the stick
and
bags,
little
cymbal
things
bags.
like you would take for granted, right?
Yeah,
like, okay, you have a drum seat. Where are you putting the top of the seat? And he built it into the bag, like a scuba bag. The end of it was like, you put your the top of
The
the
hardware
Right.
bag, you put the stool top into the hardware bag.
Yeah. I mean, he was just,
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then there were Simmons, right? Because he started working with them.
He started
in
working with them
84.
when they came out, yeah.
Yeah.
But then of course the big thing was the drum frame.
right.
And
I was going to ask about that.
That was one of his most innovative products, the drum frame, which is a rack system that tilted the entire drum set back at an angle, so you were playing. in a
We'll all
reclined
do it for
position.
you now. Ready?
Right. Yeah. Check it out. Yeah. Check it out.
And that was that became a huge obsession of his. He was working with the local the Paul brothers at Paul Welding,
Yeah.
local
I remember
welder
seeing
Yep.
that.
in Newington, and it was basically a drum rack system that was elevated and reclined. So you're leaning back, so you're taking the weight, and you're playing in a more of a suspended, reclined position to make more relaxed posture.
That's crazy.
And a lot of people didn't know what to make of it. It was very controversial to some people. It was a radical idea.
Yeah.
totally.
I didn't get it. I
And
didn't
yet,
understand it.
there was two years in a row, 2 consecutive years that drum frame appeared at the Super Bowl. Billy Ashbow played it with In Sync one year, and then I believe Chester Thompson played it the following year. It must have been with Phil Collins. I can't remember, but there was two consecutive years where drummers at the Super Bowl halftime show were playing the drum frame.
Wow.
So it was no joke.
That's crazy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
See
that?
the things you learn
Yeah,
here.
that's why we're here.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember talking to him and he said, "Yeah, I'm working on something. It's got potential to really change things." And I'm thinking to myself, really change things beyond everything else that you've done.
Yeah.
And I remember I saw it by mistake. I was there teaching one night, and it was in a room, and Bob was in there. I think you might have been there too. And I walked by, and the look on his face was like, "Oh."
You're like, check
Because
this
he
out.
was really
Like a concept car that couldn't be revealed yet.
yeah, he was really concerned.
You're lucky he didn't kill you.
He
You know,
might
imagine.
have.
Here,
He might have. I might be
have a coffee before you leave. You know, poison you. Wow.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that still around? It didn't. Did that happen? Or
But they ended up
kinda?
actually working with Command.
Oh, okay.
To do some manufacturing for it, as I think just the demand outpaced what they could do locally.
I got you.
And Command was making it for a while.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't believe it's available anymore. I'm not sure what the
Wasn't Dennis Chambers playing one for a while?
Tony Royster was. I don't think Dennis was, but Will Kennedy was another guy that was big on the drum frame, playing with the Yellow Jackets. Big proponent of it. And Tony Royster was playing one for a while.
Huh.
Yeah.
I can remember going to the NAMM show and Command had it in their booth.
Yeah.
And
then-
Dave's saying he remembers it.
And then another super innovative product was the BOA bass drum pedal that DW ended up making, but he wanted to design a pedal with no spring and no hinge. Imagine that. A bass drum pedal and a hi-hat pedal, no spring and no hinge.
How does it work?
So imagine like a diving board, almost like with the flex a diving board has, a single piece of this composite kind of mylar material, basically with like a one piece that the footboard, and there's a bend where the heel plate would go, but it flexes, and the tension there from the flex, like flexing a ruler off the edge of a table, that
Wow.
kind of concept would flex this material back and forth. And you didn't need a spring to wear out. You didn't need a hinge to rattle or make noise. And this totally silent pedal that was astounding.
Wow.
Yeah, it was there's a super, super innovative design.
Did it happen?
DW ended up marketing
you
it
said that.
under their Pacific line, which
Wow.
was like their kind of secondary line. I'm not sure the marketing ever fit the innovation, but that was a
That's
truly,
crazy.
truly innovative product. It was a radically different design.
Wow.
It might have been ahead of its time. I'm not sure
Yeah,
if people
yeah.
grasp the concept fully. But yeah, the BOA, BOA, the BO, the BOA
Because
pedals.
springs are just too much hassle.
Well, they break.
Right.
Right.
Right. So you just have
They
one
break
The
thing.
most opportune time.
Yeah.
Right. Right. Imagine if he just went all around in a circle and just invented the sock symbol. Like, hey, check this out. And you're like, that's already a thing. You know, or whatever. Like, we'll put two symbols.
Two symbols.
No, doesn't need to be high. It can be low, and you can just, it's like, yeah, that's a thing. Wow. Was that his, so what would be his last thing, would you say? Was that maybe?
The drum frame.
Okay. Yeah.
Once
Oh, drum
once
frame.
he got into the drum frame, that kind of took over most of his creative
Okay.
output and his focus.
Huh.
And then big into education. You know, he was working with Billy Ashbaugh with this program, the Start Arts, really geared at educating youth, and he was really concerned about the decline of arts and music in the school system,
Sure.
and just inspiring kids to be creative. And they were going around doing clinics, doing videos. There's a video that I pulled up recently, I'd forgotten about actually, that Bob, you can find on YouTube on his channel. And he's got like Emeril Lagasse, he's got Bill Nye the Science Guy,
Right. Right.
you know, like heavy hitters,
Yeah, yeah.
well-known people were all a part
Trying
of
to
this
make it
program to
happen.
try to encourage. So that was his focus towards the end was education and really trying to inspire the youth to think creatively. You know, that was a big trying to get them to think
Why not?
outside the box, be creative, think creatively.
That a lot of that happened at the end
Yeah.
when the store was already closed.
Yeah.
He still continued for
Yeah.
quite a while.
Sure. Yeah, he was still doing that. Yeah.
So eventually the store closed. Were you there at the bitter end?
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
On the final day.
How come? Just
There was a number of reasons. I think Bob wanted to focus. I think for a while he had consciously wanted to kind of close the store down because he wanted to focus more on product innovation and the educational
Yeah.
side of things.
yeah.
And the internet happened.
Yeah, I think
Also.
Yeah. The internet changed everything. You know,
Right.
big chain stores came in, Guitar Center came in the area. The
Yep.
landscape started to change. You could
Yep.
feel the ground shifting beneath our feet. But I think even in spite of that, he did not want to be. He would stay open. He did not want to be, an old guy just, behind the counter when he was 70, 80 years old. He did not want that for himself.
Huh.
So he wanted to get more into the product design education.
Yeah.
So they started winding things down in 2002.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did we not? What did we not? What else? I want to make sure we get it all in. I mean, we got.
Just Bob as a person, again, vibraphone was a huge. He started with a drum set, but Bob Moses really inspired him to play vibraphone, and he started with Gary Burton, and that was a huge. I think he spent 10 years or so dedicated to vibraphone, almost exclusively.
Yeah.
That was his main thing. He was really, really into vibraphone.
Huh.
But he had his project studio at home. He was always doing recordings. And the videos, his drum tuning video that hadn't really been around before. He made he was doing when educational videos were getting big. He did a video on tuning drums, how to tune a drum.
Yeah, I remember
it's
that.
a basic thing that most people don't really understand.
I remember that.
And that became one of, if not the highest selling videos DCI or Hudson Music was putting it out at the time.
Right.
That was their biggest selling video for a while. And
Imagine
Guitar Center, I think Musician's Friend or someone would include that video, like every kit they sold. Like it was such a need. There was such a body of knowledge here that people were ignorant of. They didn't know. And he was one of the first people to really get into explaining drum design, drum head design, what makes a drum sound a certain way.
Yep.
Single ply versus 2-ply, different tuning engines, the relationship of the bottom head to the top head, all these things that we would do every day in the store experimenting with, but most people didn't have that.
Yeah, right.
That,
To like lay
that
it
depth
down.
of knowledge,
Right.
And he was the first guy to really put that forth to the general public. Like,
Wow. That's
snare drum
wild.
tuning and drum head choice and
So
all-
just
and shell design,
never
all that
stop.
stuff.
Just
Yeah.
always.
They did a series of those videos, but that was a huge boost for his presence as well. In the
Yeah.
industry.
It's cool to think, to kind of look back on, the astounding amount of his body of work was amazing. But when you were in it, a lot of times we'd be like, we'd be kind of chuckling at his his flights of fancy, because that's what they were. He was, he was almost like the kooky mad professor. But now, when we're sitting here talking about it now, it's absolutely phenomenal to to conceive of how many great ideas he had and how he really embodied the creative spirit. I mean, it couldn't have been more aptly named.
Yeah, right.
I'm sure he didn't even really know when he embarked on that it would take him that far. But it was really inspirational, and I think that that's the thing that drew us there. We were all very inspired to be there and to go through the magic of the place. I mean, I was thinking the other day, when you first, when we were kids, you get the Sears catalog and you look at drums, right? And, we were all geeks and now people are looking at eBay and stuff like that. But back in the day, when smoking was allowed in buildings, there was the Sears catalog, right? And you'd want that green sparkle, But creative just filled that void,
100%. That was my experience.
But it didn't stop there, It just, for him, it was just like a yellow brick road with the ideas aplenty, and they just kept coming out. And it's really, so next Thursday, I think it's going to be an overwhelming thing to be there and to see everybody, and we have lots of videos and a lot of cool things to present. So it's going to be a really fantastic.
So drumming, it would be different, no doubt about it. Like he changed drumming
for sure
for everybody.
A lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, he really did.
That's crazy.
And he was kind of part of a lineage too, because you mentioned the Christmas parties.
Yeah.
Christmas parties were like legendary.
Yeah, right. I can only imagine.
Bob and Gene would go out for their annual run together. And then I don't know what they were drinking, but whatever they were drinking was a lot of it.
Oh,
and then Al Lepak would show up like the Godfather, and everybody would have cigars. And,
Yeah, right.
It was just laughs,
Pizza,
and
beer, and food.
So that's what we're going to try to do. Next Thursday we're going to have.
Can we smoke indoors?
No,
Oh, okay, all right, never mind.
but we can eat pizza.
Yeah.
I don't think we've been trying to figure out. I went a couple times.
Jeff will probably run in honor. You'll run to the thing from wherever.
If anybody that's watching this can help us out, it was St. Rita's or something. Like it was a bakery in Rocky Hill. Like you went across the line down the Dean, and right by where the ferry goes, there was a bakery there, and that's where we used to get these big sheet pizzas, and that's what we had at the Christmas party. It was pizza and beer and scotch. So that's what we're doing next week.
Joanne used to make her artichoke dip. I always loved that.
Oh boy,
That was always great.
What?
Her artichoke dip. Remember, Joanne would make the artichoke dip.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll have the artichoke dip next week.
Yeah, let's.
Maybe Jeff, you could whip that up.
Rob the drummer, would always bring his big gift basket in for us, and we'd divvy
yeah.
up the fruits and the crackers and the chocolates and
Far
those Christmas parties. I remember going to those as a customer, stumbling into them. Again, me and Lenny Roberto going in there one day, just happened to be Christmas Eve. It was the Christmas party, and
Wow.
Bob's like, "You guys are 18, right? We're 16 or 17.
Yeah,
Have a beer, and you're
Yeah,
beers
right.
in the stores. Yeah, sure. It was just like,
Wow.
yeah. Everyone talks about those parties.
Yeah, my friend Rick Bogdan shares a birthday with Bob, as well as Joe Montanari, who's one of our, dear drum colleagues and friends who
Just
passed. But March 23rd, I think that's their birthday. So all three of those guys had birthdays. But
That's right.
Rick would tell me that he worked on a lot of Bob's stuff. He, repairing all the gear at Bob's studio. So Rick would show up, and Bob would have a bottle, and they would do some shots and kibitz or whatever, and Bob would always send him home with the bottle. Rick would take the bottle home. That's the kind of guy Bob was. His little rituals and his little acts of kindness, were quirky and really cool.
Yeah.
He was a great man.
Yeah.
He was a great man.
Yeah, that's wild. That's why we're lucky. You think about it. I guess that's what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
Like we're still thinking about.
And all the clinics,
When
and
you put
we
it all
always
together.
we always talk about that.
Oh
I
my
posted a
God.
list of all the clinics that I can remember. I think there was like 50 names in there or something.
Yeah, I saw it on Facebook,
right?
and I was
It's
going
just,
through it, and I'm going, "Oh, did you get this one?"
Yeah. I mean, it was just the clinics that exposed so many of us to so much knowledge and insight from all these great master drummers coming through. So many legends.
Little
So
old Weathersfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy.
Steve Smith has an unbelievable drum performance yesterday on Facebook. I think it's what is it, Night in Tunisia or something? It's otherworldly how good he's playing now, But when he was, in Journey, I mean, he was playing in the room where we were all sitting in Weathersfield.
Yeah.
I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That we got we got a chance to see Weckel and all the,
Tony
just-
Williams, Bernard Purdy, Vinny Caluta.
Nico McBrain.
Nico
That was
McBrain.
the
Oh,
funniest. He
that was
was
great.
hilarious.
Oh, really?
That was a good one.
Tommy
I remember that
Aldridge.
Yeah.
Matt
So
Sorum.
many.
Yeah.
Go on and on
So
and
many
on.
great ones.
I'll have to look at that list.
Yeah.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Wow. Nico McBrain. So here's the Nico McBrain question. Does he hit that tom that the ride cymbal's in front of, or what? That's what I want to know. Does anyone know?
I actually wasn't there for that clinic. I remember hearing stories about it, but I wasn't there.
Oh
for
my
it.
You know what I'm
God.
talking about?
No, what is it?
So Nico's got his, toms, an array of toms up front, and his ride cymbal is like in front of the tom that's over there. Like he doesn't leave a hole for the, like the ride cymbal's over, and I'm like, is it possible to hit the tom that's behind? You got to look at
I
it.
don't
No,
recall.
I'll post in the comments
Funny.
when this video goes on YouTube. I'll post that list of all the guys that did
Yeah,
clinics
yeah.
there.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, that's funny. Who was the most memorable? It's hard. You can't.
Most memorable clinic.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
For me, well, the Dave Weckel clinic was phenomenal, but seeing Dennis Chambers for the first time,
Yeah.
Right.
like the first
You're
few
like,
times,
who's this
we
guy?
didn't know who he was.
Yeah.
And there was like, here. Speaking of Bob's sense of generosity, so Dennis comes in. People didn't really know him in the drumming community at the time. Does this clinic? There's like 30 of us there. He just blows our minds. And I think at the time Dennis was charging like $350 or something like that, which even back then was very low for a
Yeah,
clinic. And Bob just gave him more money because he was just so blown away by it. Like
Wow.
I remember he's like, this can't stand. Like he
Wow.
paid him if he asked $350, gave him $500 or $600 or doubled whatever he was asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he was just at this very modest fee compared to most guys, and the clinic was just so mind blowing. And Bob was like, "No, we got to pay more than that."
Wow. That's
Dennis
wild.
became close to Bob and was there multiple times.
Yeah.
So that was a mind blowing clinic for sure.
Mhm.
Cool. In conclusion, you got like 5 minutes.
I've been talking too much.
Well,
No, not at all.
In conclusion,
sure.
definitely come next Thursday because
Oh yeah.
Thursday,
it's
May
it's
16th.
really it's an opportunity. There are going to be some fantastic characters. We're hoping Paul Lombardo shows.
Oh, wow.
You
That
know,
would be
we're
great.
hoping. We're just hoping that we get a lot of.
Get the spirit.
Jeff and I were up at this store a couple weeks ago in a new kind of exciting drum store up in South Hadley.
Yeah, Wood and Weather Vintage
yeah.
Drum Shop.
And some guy came in and he was carrying in like concert bass drums, some weird stuff. And we were tacking a poster on the wall, and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, I knew Bob.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just very wide reaching, and hopefully people will take the time because it's going to be a great night. It's
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
be really fantastic.
Yeah, we've
All
invited
right.
those guys down. We're hoping Wood and Weather's going to show there too, just to show off. Some
Yeah,
of
yeah.
their-
You were saying.
Just as an extension of the drumming community.
Yeah.
Because they're
Why
keeping
not?
that tradition alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, what else are you doing next Thursday? Come on.
Right. Yeah. It's a Thursday. I mean,
Nobody's
I'm
gigging.
busy. I have to wash my hair.
Nobody's gigging, and nobody's going to a gig. So
Right.
Right.
No. I'll
And I
be
guess
there.
I can say so Tommy Dest, who taught there for a long time and goes way back at the beginning of the store, he's going to be performing a vibraphone solo
Oh, cool.
as a tribute to Bob.
Cool.
Because he studied with Bob,
Yeah,
drums
he was-
and vibraphone. So
He
he's
was
going to
really like his mentee.
yeah. Tommy was there probably longer than
that a
anyone.
word?
Yeah.
So he's gonna perform a little solo, a vibraphone solo in honor of Bob. So that's gonna be special.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I remember seeing Tommy at Mad Murphy's downstairs, and just going like, "That's not right." He's a kid.
Oh,
and,
really?
The stuff coming out of him was just like
sick.
Well,
amazing, oozing music.
Yeah.
When back in the '80s, I played in the summer. The Hartford Stage Company used to have this summer youth program, and we put on a musical performance. I was in high school at the time, and we'd rehearse at the old Hartford Stage. It was like within the G. Fox building, behind the G. Fox building off Main Street in Hartford. And then we'd wheel our stuff over to the new Hartford Stage, like a vibraphone wheeling down Main Street in Hartford. And there at Brown Thompson's is Street Temperature with Tommy Dest at the time.
Yeah.
There's Tommy and his little jazz Gretsch kit. They're doing Birdland, and I can distinctly remember him like sitting there with his samba whistle around his neck on his Gretsch kit and thinking, this guy's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
a professional drummer.
Yeah.
And-
Right.
And Tommy and I became great friends over the years. We got to know each other through creative, but that was like all that community just comes together. That was my first impression of Tom Dest.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's all gonna come full circle.
Yeah.
Hopefully next week.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it's
looking
too,
forward
it's
to.
too bad it's gone, because you can't get that from an online site.
It's true.
Sweetwater can't give you what we got.
Right.
And,
No,
we're
that is
so
true.
lucky. We really are.
Yeah.
And I think I speak for everybody here. Creative was a huge part of our musical existence.
Oh, yeah.
Enormous. It was
And it's
unbelievable.
a fraternity. Everyone that was a customer there is part of a fraternity. Everyone's connected.
Right.
We're going to have some video testimonies I've been getting from people from around the country, from Seattle, from Chicago,
Yeah.
from Texas, from Nashville.
Yeah.
All guys that were
Yeah.
creative customers at one point, and
Yeah.
it spans in the nationwide.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, like I say, it's not about me at all, but I was not part of this Hartford thing because I grew up in Wallingford, which might as well, when you're young without a car.
But you had Neil's Donuts.
No, we didn't have Neil's Donuts
oh.
back then. No.
I'm sorry.
But like I'm just saying, like even in Wallingford, which was more New Haven, creative was the thing. Me and my drum buddies would go up, and it was like an event going up there.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe when I first saw like a display, like all the symbols on one thing. I was like, this is a thing. Like there's just symbols you can just hit and find. It was mind blowing. I'm just saying, at least I'm the least of it. I was not at the center of the scene, and it affected me and my friends.
Yeah.
And I know Wallingford's not that far, but like I say, when we knew about it. I don't even know who knew, but somebody, one or the other of my drum buddy friends, my little clique, was like, we're going to go to this place. And my dad drove us, and we all went. And it was like, wow, this is crazy.
It was always an event. It was always
Yeah.
exciting as a customer.
Oh, hell yeah.
And like I said, people walk in, and
Yep.
in the later years, Bob was always working on something, some prototypes, and he's always working on just variations, tweaking especially like with the drum heads. He was always coming up with variations and
crazy,
always inventing.
Well, be there or be square is what I'm saying.
Now that's a catchy one.
Well,
that would go well in a T-shirt.
That's where
Think about that.
all the cool people are going to be there on Thursday.
Thursday, May 16th.
May 16th.
5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Old Weathersfield, Main Street, the Keeney Memorial Cultural Center.
Right. So that's next Thursday. So you will definitely, whoever will be seeing this, that's why we're doing this now instead of 2 days before, so that by the time this hits, everybody will know who. I don't know who would only find out through here, but
we're counting on those 250,000 listeners.
Come one, come all.
Hey, you know what? As long as they bring a double sawbuck, who cares? Whatever.
No Venmo.
That's right. No Venmo. All right. From left to right, John McIlhoney, Geoff Brown, Frank Giguere. We're all here in honor of Bob Gatzen. And shout out to Joe Montanari, too. We'll do something someday.
Sad loss.
We'll get around to that one, too. But be there or be square, kids. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to say it could be the last time, but it will be a time where we're all there. All the beautiful people. All right. I'm pressing the button. You're not going to hear the song with the measure of 5 in it, but I'm hearing it right now because John Peckman Podcast, Connecticut Valley School Music and Dance, beautiful downtown Portland. Come over to Bridge, like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Thank you very much. John McIlhoney, Geoff Brown, Frank Giguere. We're all here from the world-famous creative drum shop, store, studio, workshop, center of the universe. And be there at the thing next Thursday. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys are here. It's wild that this even happened. All right, that is all.
If you'd like to start your own podcast, give us a call at Connecticut Valley School of Music and Dance. Our professionally designed podcast space is here for all your recording needs. Rent out our studio to do interviews with up to 4 people, to record audiobooks, social media content, and all other recorded material. Our rentals include a private studio along with our professional-grade podcasting equipment, and we can customize your output to whatever your needs are. We also have green screen capabilities, which will expand to video capability if you so wish. So check us out here at convalley.net/podcast.